The Valorian research vessel floated dead in space with smoke pouring from its damaged hull. Commander Zelthrus gripped the communication panel with 3 of his thin arms, while his large eyes watched the screen showing how badly his ship was hurt. His ship had been studying distant stars when the pirates came without warning. Now his crew was dying and he had only minutes left to save them. "Send the emergency signal on every frequency we have," he ordered his young officer Catherine, who worked at the navigation station. "Make it as powerful as possible so anyone nearby can hear us. The Krevar pirates are coming back and we cannot survive another attack." Catherine's fingers moved fast across her controls, but then she stopped and her face went pale. "Commander, I made a terrible mistake. I sent our distress call on Channel 7 Alpha by accident. That channel only reaches the Deathworld species." Zelthrus felt ice run through his body. The Galactic Council kept strict rules about the 47 species that came from Deathworlds. These were planets where gravity crushed bones, where giant predators hunted anything that moved, where the weather itself tried to kill you every day. The beings that evolved on such nightmare worlds were dangerous beyond measure. Most civilized species never met them because the Council kept them far away in their own sectors of space. The Krevar pirates fired again and the whole ship shook like it would break apart. Alarms screamed from every wall. Metal beams fell from the ceiling and missed Catherine by inches. "Hull breach on 3 decks," she shouted over the noise. "Life support is failing. We have maybe 10 minutes before the air runs out." Zelthrus stood as straight as his body would allow. If he was going to die today, he would face it with honor. "All crew members prepare for the end," he began to say. But Catherine interrupted him with a shout. A ship just appeared out of nowhere. It dropped out of hyperspace right next to us. The sensors say it is massive. The computer's having trouble measuring how big it actually is. "Commander, the signature matches human design. We called the humans." Every Valorian on the bridge froze. Even the alarms seemed quieter for a moment. Humans were one of only 3 Deathworld species that had learned to travel faster than light. Stories about Earth made children hide under their beds at night. The planet had gravity that would flatten most species, oceans that could swallow continents, storms that leveled cities, and animals that existed only to kill and eat other animals. Humans had fought their way off that horrible world through violence and stubbornness, and now one of their warships had heard the distress call. The human ship appeared on their view screen, and Zelthrus could not believe what he saw. The vessel was enormous beyond reason. It could carry 100 Valorian research ships inside its hull. Weapons covered every surface. The dark metal reflected no light. It looked like death itself had taken physical form. This was the UNS Vengeance, and it had come in response to their call. "What have we done?" Zelthrus whispered. "What have we done?" The Krevar pirates saw the human ship too, and they immediately opened fire on it. Dozens of plasma bolts struck the Vengeance and splashed across its shields like raindrops on glass. The human ship did not even slow down. Then the humans fired back. The weapons made no sound in space, but the results were unmistakable. The first pirate ship simply exploded into a cloud of debris. The second one got cut in half by a projectile moving so fast it glowed white-hot. The other 4 pirates tried to run, but the human point defense systems tracked them perfectly. 4 more explosions lit up the darkness. The entire battle lasted less than 10 seconds. The Krevar fleet that had been slowly destroying the Valorian ship for the past hour was gone. Erased from existence by human weapons, Zelthrus and his crew stared at their screens in complete shock. They had just witnessed the kind of violence that made humans the most feared species in known space. Then a voice came through their communication system. It spoke in perfect galactic standard. "Valorian vessel, this is Commander Lisa Phillips of the United Nations Starship Vengeance. We are sending rescue teams to your location. Please do not be alarmed by our appearance. We mean you no harm. Can you respond?" The voice was female and surprisingly gentle. Zelthrus found his own voice somehow. "This is Commander Zelthrus. We acknowledge your assistance. Many of my crew are injured. We have maybe 15 minutes of air left." "Understood, Commander. We will have you aboard in 10 minutes. Phillips out." Zelthrus looked at his crew. They were all thinking the same thing. The humans had destroyed 6 pirate ships without breaking stride. What would they do to a helpless Valorian crew? Every story about Deathworlders involved violence and domination. The Council kept them separated for good reasons. But Zelthrus had no choice. His crew needed help, and the humans were the only ones who had answered the call. 8 minutes later, the hull on Deck 2 began to glow red as something cut through the metal from outside. "All mobile crew assemble in the main corridor," Zelthrus ordered. "Stay together and do not make any threatening moves." The humans are predators and we do not want to trigger their hunting instincts. The Valorians huddled together in the corridor as the hull plate fell inward with a loud crash. Figures moved through the opening and Zelthrus got his first real look at humans. He had seen pictures before, but pictures could not capture the reality. They stood on two legs like some other species, but that was where similarities ended. Even in their spacesuits, the humans were huge. They towered over the Valorians, who barely came up to their waists. Every movement showed controlled strength. These beings had evolved to survive on a high-gravity world, and it showed in every muscle. But the eyes were what truly terrified Zelthrus. The humans had forward-facing eyes like all predators, eyes designed to track prey and judge distance before the kill. Every instinct in Zelthrus's body screamed at him to run from those eyes. His species had evolved as prey animals on a gentle world. Humans had evolved as apex predators on a nightmare world. They were not supposed to meet. Yet here they were. The lead human walked toward them slowly with both hands raised in what had to be a peaceful gesture. When she spoke, her voice came through their translators, sounding calm and careful. "Commander Zelthrus, I am Commander Phillips. We are here to help you. How many wounded crew members do you have?" Zelthrus forced himself to speak even though his voice shook. "We have 12 injured and 5 are very serious. Our medical officer died in the first attack." He watched the human carefully, trying to predict what she would do. The predator eyes looked at him, but he saw no hunger there. No violence. Just concern. Phillips nodded and spoke into a device on her wrist. Medical team moved to the forward section. Multiple casualties need immediate attention. Dr. Stevens, you are cleared to proceed. More humans entered through the breach carrying equipment that Zelthrus did not recognize. They moved with purpose toward the injured Valorians scattered around the ship. One human with a Red Cross symbol on his suit knelt beside a Valorian who had severe burns across half his body. The injured crew member whimpered in fear as the predator leaned close. "My name is Dr. Greg Stevens, and I am going to help you. This might sting a little, but it will stop the pain." The doctor sprayed something on the burns from a silver cylinder. The wounded Valorian gasped, but not from pain. His expression changed to surprise and then relief as the human medicine worked instantly. The burns started to heal right before their eyes. Zelthrus watched in amazement. Human medical technology was far more advanced than anything the Valorians possessed. Commander Phillips turned back to Zelthrus. "We need to evacuate your entire crew immediately. Your ship is not going to last much longer. Will you permit us to bring everyone aboard the Vengeance?" It was phrased as a question, not an order. The human was asking permission. "You would bring us onto your warship?" Zelthrus asked in disbelief. "But we have nothing to offer you. We called by accident. We did not mean to contact your people." "Commander," Phillips said, and her voice became even gentler, "you sent a distress signal. Someone needed help. That is all that matters to us. Now will you trust us to save your crew?" Zelthrus looked at his people. They were terrified, yes, but the humans were handling them with remarkable care. These Deathworlders, who could have crushed any Valorian with their bare hands, were treating the injured with steady gentleness. The same species that had just obliterated 6 pirate ships in seconds was now carefully lifting wounded aliens onto stretchers. "Yes, we trust you," Zelthrus finally said. The words felt strange, but also true. The evacuation happened quickly. The humans worked with smooth efficiency that came from long practice. They carried the injured first with a care that surprised Zelthrus. One human soldier noticed a young Valorian technician trembling in fear, and the soldier made himself smaller by kneeling down. "Hey, there it is, okay. My name is Jake. We are going to get you somewhere safe, all right. Just hold on to this handle on the stretcher and close your eyes if that helps." The kindness in the gesture made Zelthrus question everything the Galactic Council had taught him about Deathworld species. The journey to the Vengeance took only minutes but felt like hours. Zelthrus floated through the docking tube between the 2 ships and emerged into a massive hangar bay. The space was so large his entire research vessel could have fit inside with room to spare. Human crew members rushed about performing various tasks, but several stopped to help guide the Valorian survivors. A tall human with captain insignia approached Zelthrus. His forward-facing eyes met the Valorian's gaze, and Zelthrus had to fight every instinct not to look away. "Commander Zelthrus, I am Captain Daniel Cross. Welcome aboard the Vengeance. Your crew is being taken to our medical bay where they will receive the best care we can provide. You are safe here." "Thank you, Captain." Zelthrus hesitated, then asked the question burning in his mind. "Why did you help us?" "The Galactic Council says Deathworld species are dangerous, that your kind should be avoided." Yet you came when we called and you destroyed our attackers. I do not understand. Daniel smiled, and it was strange to see a predator make that expression. The baring of teeth should have been a threat display, but somehow Zelthrus knew it meant friendliness. Captain Cross gestured for Zelthrus to follow him. Walk with me, Commander, and I will try to explain. They moved through the corridors of the great warship with several human guards following at a respectful distance. Your counsel is not entirely wrong, Daniel began. Earth is a harsh world. Our gravity is more than twice what you experience on Valor. Our oceans have storms that can sink ships the size of your vessel. We have animals that hunt in packs and can run for hours without stopping. We have diseases that can wipe out entire populations. The planet tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. So the stories are true, Zelthrus said quietly. Your world is a nightmare. To you, perhaps, yes. To us, it is home. But here's what the Council does not understand. When you evolve on a planet that is constantly trying to kill you, you learn something very important. You learn that survival depends on working together. Humans are social creatures, Commander. We protect our families. We defend our friends. We help those who cannot help themselves. Those instincts did not disappear when we reached the stars. They walked past a window that looked out into space. The stars shone cold and distant. But you are predators, Zelthrus said. You hunt, you kill. We saw what you did to those pirates. Yes, we did, Daniel agreed. And I will not apologize for that. Those pirates were hurting innocent people. Your people. Sometimes violence is necessary to protect those who cannot protect themselves. But being capable of violence and choosing violence as a first option are very different things. Humans learned that lesson through thousands of years of fighting among ourselves. We know what unchecked aggression costs. Zelthrus absorbed this. The human captain was not denying his species' capacity for violence. He was explaining that they had learned to control it, to aim it at those who deserved it, rather than using it indiscriminately. The concept was foreign to Valorian thinking, but it made a strange kind of sense. The medical bay of the Vengeance was unlike anything Zelthrus had ever seen. The room stretched for what seemed like hundreds of meters, filled with equipment that hummed and beeped with purpose. Dr. Stevens moved between the wounded Valorians with quick efficiency, while human nurses assisted him with surprising gentleness. Each injured crew member lay on beds that automatically adjusted to their smaller size and lower gravity needs. Zelthrus sat on one of these beds with his legs dangling well above the floor. Captain Cross had pulled up a chair and positioned it at Zelthrus's eye level, rather than looming over him. The gesture was small but meaningful. The human was trying to make himself less threatening. Your Dr. Stevens has already created medicines that work with our biology, Zelthrus observed. How is that possible? We have only been aboard your ship for less than an hour. Our medical database contains biological information on every species we have encountered, plus many we have not met yet, Daniel explained. The Galactic Council shares some information through diplomatic channels even if they do not share much else. Stevens used that data to synthesize compatible treatments. Your wounded will make full recoveries. A young human nurse approached, carrying a container of blue liquid. Commander Zelthrus, Dr. Stevens prepared this nutritional supplement for you. It should be safe for your digestive system and help restore your strength. She offered it with a smile that showed teeth, but Zelthrus was learning to read the expression as friendly rather than threatening. He accepted the container and took a careful sip. The taste was surprisingly pleasant, reminding him of fruit from his home world. Thank you. The nurse nodded and moved on to check other Valorian crew members. Zelthrus watched as she gently adjusted the bed position for an elderly technician who seemed uncomfortable. The care in her movements spoke louder than any words. Captain Cross, I must ask you something, Zelthrus said. What will happen now? The Galactic Council has rules about contact between Council species and Deathworld species. They will have many questions when they learn a human warship entered their space. They may see this as an invasion. Daniel leaned back in his chair. We patrol the border regions between Council space and unclaimed territory. Officially, we are not supposed to cross the boundary without authorization. But unofficially, we have an understanding with some Council members. When someone calls for help on the emergency channel, whoever is closest responds. Today that happened to be us. You patrol specifically to answer distress calls from species that fear you, Zelthrus said slowly. Why would you do that? Because it needs doing. The outer regions are dangerous, Commander. The Council does excellent work maintaining peace and order in their core territories, but their patrol ships rarely venture to the frontier. That leaves a gap that pirates and raiders exploit. So we fill that gap. We watch the dark spaces. When someone is in trouble, we help them regardless of what species they are or how they feel about us. You are guardians, Zelthrus said with wonder in his voice. You stand between the darkness and those who cannot defend themselves. We prefer to think of ourselves as neighbors who help when needed, Daniel said with another smile. But yes, I suppose Guardian works too. Earth taught us to be strong, but it also taught us to protect the weak. Those two lessons are connected in ways the Council does not understand. Catherine approached, walking slowly and keeping her head lowered in a gesture of respect and non-threat. Commander Zelthrus, the humans have offered to tow what remains of our vessel to the nearest Council station. They will also provide us with a complete report that we can submit to our superiors. Her voice held amazement at the generosity. And then you will let us go, Zelthrus asked Daniel. Just like that? No demands for payment or information. No threats. You are rescued civilians, not prisoners, Daniel said firmly. Once we get you somewhere safe, you are free to do whatever you wish. Though I should warn you, the Council will probably ask you many difficult questions about your time aboard a human warship. They will want to know everything. Let them ask their questions, Zelthrus said with more confidence than he had felt since the pirate attack began. I will tell them the truth. When my crew was dying in space, when pirates were about to board and kill us all, it was humans who answered our call. It was Deathworlders who showed us mercy and kindness. I will tell them that the monsters they fear came to save us. Daniel stood and offered his hand. Zelthrus recognized the gesture from his cultural database. Humans shook hands to seal agreements and show friendship. The Valorian reached out with one thin arm and his small hand disappeared into the captain's large grip. But the human held carefully without squeezing. The gesture of a being who knew his own strength and controlled it. Good luck with the Council, Commander, Daniel said. I hope they listen to what you have to say. Change happens slowly, but it has to start somewhere. Maybe your testimony will be that start. Over the next few hours, Zelthrus and his crew remained in the medical bay, while the Vengeance towed their damaged ship toward the nearest Council station. The Valorians had plenty of time to observe their rescuers. What they saw challenged everything they thought they knew about Deathworld species. The human crew worked with discipline and efficiency, but also with humor and camaraderie. They laughed together during mealtimes. They showed concern when a crew member seemed tired or stressed. A group of off-duty soldiers played some kind of competitive game in a corner of the bay, keeping their voices down, so as not to disturb the Valorian patients. When one Valorian child who had been injured started crying from fear, a human nurse sat beside the bed and sang a soft song until the child fell asleep. These were not mindless killing machines. They were people, complex social beings who had built a civilization that valued honor and duty, and compassion alongside their capacity for violence. They were proof that evolution on a harsh world did not automatically create monsters. It could also create protectors. Dr. Stevens approached Zelthrus with a datapad. I have compiled medical records for all your crew members along with treatment protocols in case you need ongoing care. Your people are remarkably resilient, Commander. They will all make full recoveries with proper rest. He handed over the pad and Zelthrus saw that all the information was translated into Valorian script. You did all of this for strangers, Zelthrus said, for aliens who called you by accident and have nothing to offer in return. Stevens shrugged a very human gesture. You needed help. We could provide it. What other reason do we need? Besides, saving lives is what I do. Does not matter if those lives have 2 legs or 4 or 8. Life is precious regardless of what form it takes. 3 weeks passed before Zelthrus found himself standing in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council Subcommittee on Deathworld Relations. The room was vast enough to hold representatives from dozens of species, and the weight of their collective attention pressed down on him like physical force. High above the floor sat the council members in seats arranged in ascending circles. Below them stood Zelthrus, feeling very small and very alone. Commander Zelthrus, the chair being said, in a voice that came through the translation system with cold formality. You have submitted a report that has caused considerable controversy among the council members. You claim that a human warship not only rescued your crew, but treated you with what you describe as exemplary care and compassion. Can you confirm this is accurate? It is completely accurate, Chair Being, Zelthrus replied, keeping his voice as steady as possible. The humans of the UNS Vengeance saved 40 Valorian lives at considerable risk to themselves. They destroyed 6 Krevar pirate vessels. They provided advanced medical treatment to our wounded. They escorted us safely to a council station and asked for nothing in return. Murmurs rippled through the chamber like waves. Representatives whispered to each other while others made notes on datapads. A Centaurian delegate rose from his seat with his multiple eye stalks all focusing on Zelthrus. Yet the humans violated the border agreement by entering council space. Their vessel was a military warship, not a civilian craft. How can we know this was not reconnaissance disguised as rescue? Perhaps they were testing our defenses. Because I was there, Zelthrus said with more force than he intended. I spoke with their captain. I watched their crew. If the humans wanted to scout council space, they would not have announced their presence by destroying a pirate fleet and rescuing a damaged civilian vessel. They responded to a distress call because someone was in danger. The motivation was that simple and that pure. Another delegate from the Peaceful Meridian Collective stood. She was tall and graceful with silver skin that reflected the chamber lights. The council restrictions on Deathworld species exist for very good reasons, Commander. Their capacity for violence is documented across thousands of encounters throughout galactic history. You yourself state in your report that you were terrified when you first saw the humans. I was terrified, yes, Zelthrus admitted. Their evolution shaped them into apex predators. Everything about them, from their forward-facing eyes to their dense muscle structure, speaks of a species designed to hunt and kill. But evolution also made them into something else. It made them into protectors. The same instincts that make them dangerous also compel them to defend those who cannot defend themselves. The chair being leaned forward in his seat. You are asking this council to reconsider centuries of carefully constructed policy based on one positive encounter. Do you understand how significant such a change would be? The quarantine protocols exist to protect the peaceful species of this galaxy. I am asking the council to acknowledge what I witnessed, Zelthrus said, meeting the chair being's gaze despite his fear. The humans patrol the frontier regions. They hunt pirates and raiders. They respond to distress calls from any species that sends them. They are already doing the work of keeping the outer territories safe, while we treat them as threats to be contained rather than potential allies to be welcomed. Kethryn stood beside Zelthrus, providing silent support. Now she spoke up for the first time. If I may address the council, I was the one who made the error that sent our distress call on the Deathworld emergency channel. The humans had every right to be angry with us for the intrusion into their communication network. They could have ignored our call. They could have punished us for the mistake. Instead, they came immediately. They fought on our behalf. They treated our wounded with their own advanced technology. What does that tell us about their true character? The chamber fell into heavy silence as representatives considered the testimony. Zelthrus could see some members nodding thoughtfully while others looked skeptical. The Centaurian delegate who had questioned him earlier seemed particularly unconvinced. Change would not come easily to an institution as old and set in its ways as the Galactic Council. A new voice spoke from the upper levels. This representative was from a species Zelthrus did not recognize. Commander Zelthrus, did you feel threatened at any time while aboard the human vessel? Did they restrict your movements or interrogate you for information? No to both questions, Zelthrus answered. Captain Cross offered to let me move freely throughout the ship, though I chose to stay near my crew. Several human crew members went out of their way to make us comfortable. They adjusted their environmental controls to match our preferred temperature and humidity. They prepared food compatible with our biology. They played quiet music in the medical bay because they noticed it helped us relax. These are not the actions of conquerors or scouts. These are the actions of compassionate beings who genuinely wanted to help. And the destruction of the pirate vessels, the representative continued. How would you characterize the level of force used? Precise and overwhelming, Zelthrus said. The humans eliminated the threat completely and quickly, but they did not pursue fleeing pirates beyond the immediate area. They did not loot the wreckage. They focused entirely on securing our safety and providing medical aid. Their use of force was appropriate to the situation, nothing more. Another hour passed as various council members asked questions. Some seemed genuinely curious about the humans, while others appeared determined to find flaws in Zelthrus's account. He answered each question as honestly as he could, drawing on his memories of those hours aboard the Vengeance. Finally, the chair being called for order. Commander Zelthrus, your testimony has been noted and will be entered into the official record. The council will deliberate on these matters in closed session. You are dismissed with our gratitude for your service and your honesty. You may return to your duties on valor. As Zelthrus and Kethryn left the grand chamber and walked through the long corridors of the council station, Catherine spoke quietly. Do you think they will listen to what you said? Do you think anything will change? I do not know, Zelthris admitted. The council is old and change frightens them. But I spoke the truth. What they choose to do with that truth is beyond my control. At least now they cannot say they were not told. At least someone stood up and said the humans deserve better than to be treated as monsters. They reached the docking area where a transport waited to take them back to Valor. Before boarding, Zelthris accessed a private communication terminal. He composed a message, carefully choosing each word. The message was sent through unofficial channels that avoided council oversight. It would take time to reach its destination, but Zelthris knew it would get there eventually. Captain Cross, I want to thank you again for saving my crew and my ship. I also want you to know that I told the Galactic Council everything that happened. I do not know if my testimony will change their policies, but I spoke the truth about what your people did for us. Some of us understand now. Some of us remember who answered when we called for help. If humanity ever needs friends among the stars, know that the Valorians will remember. We will stand with you because you stood with us when it mattered most. The message reached Captain Daniel Cross 3 days later, while the Vengeance patrolled the outer rim near the edge of council space. He read it twice, sitting alone in his ready room with a cup of coffee cooling on the desk beside him. The sincerity in Zelthris's words was clear even through the translation software. Daniel forwarded the message to UN Space Command headquarters with a brief note attached. Progress being made. Small steps toward better relations. Will continue mission as planned. Commander Phillips entered without knocking, as was her privilege as executive officer. She saw the message on his screen and read it over his shoulder. Think the council will actually change their policies based on one Valorian's testimony? She asked, settling into the chair across from him. Eventually, Daniel said after taking a sip of his now cold coffee. Change takes time, especially for an institution as old as the Galactic Council, but every positive interaction plants a seed. Zelthris will tell his story to other Valorians. Some will dismiss it, but others will listen. Those listeners will start to question what they have been taught about Deathworld species. Questions lead to doubt, and doubt leads to investigation. Slowly, very slowly, opinions shift. How many more rescues will it take before they see us as allies instead of threats, Phillips wondered. She looked tired, and Daniel realized they had been on patrol for 3 months straight, with only brief stops for resupply. As many as it takes, Daniel answered. Our grandparents made first contact with the Galactic Council 60 years ago. The Council took one look at humanity's homeworld and immediately classified us as dangerous. They saw our weapons and our military strength and decided we needed to be contained. They never bothered to learn who we actually are as a people. Changing 60 years of fear and misunderstanding will not happen overnight. Phillips nodded and pulled up a star chart on her data pad. Speaking of patrols, we received 3 more distress calls this week. 2 were from Council species who accidentally used the Deathworld emergency channel. The third was from a human mining colony under attack by raiders. How do you want to proceed? We respond to all 3 in order of urgency, Daniel said immediately. Send the Vengeance to help the mining colony since they are under active attack. Dispatch the destroyer Halifax to assist the other 2 distress calls. Make sure Halifax's captain understands the situation. These council species will be terrified when they see a human warship. Our people need to be gentle and patient. Understood, sir. Phillips made notes on her pad. On a related subject, the crew has been talking about Commander Zelthris and his testimony to the council. Morale is up. The crew feels like what we are doing out here actually matters. They are proud that we are changing minds one rescue at a time. Good, Daniel said with satisfaction. That pride is earned. This crew has saved hundreds of lives over the past year. They have responded to distress calls from a dozen different species. They have fought pirates and raiders and natural disasters. And they have done it all, while knowing that most of the galaxy sees them as monsters. That takes a special kind of courage. The door chimed and Lieutenant Karen Hayes entered.
Captain, we are receiving another distress signal.
This one is on the standard Galactic Council emergency channel, not the Deathworld channel. A cargo hauler reports engine failure in the Deneb sector. They are drifting toward a debris field and will collide in approximately 4 hours. Distance to their location? Daniel asked, already pulling up navigation data. 6 hours at maximum speed, Hayes replied. We would arrive 2 hours after the collision. However, the destroyer Perth is only 2 hours away. Should I forward the distress call to them? Daniel considered for a moment. Forward it to Perth, yes, but also set course to intercept. If Perth runs into complications, we need to be in position to assist. And Hayes have communications prepare a message to the cargo hauler. Tell them help is on the way. Sometimes just knowing someone heard the call makes all the difference. As Hayes left to carry out the orders, Philip smiled at Daniel. Not our species, not our emergency channel, not technically our responsibility, yet here we go anyway. She stood and headed for the door. I will get the crew ready for possible rescue operations. Alone again, Daniel looked out the viewport at the stars streaming past. Somewhere out there, the Galactic Council was debating policies about Deathworld species. Politicians and bureaucrats were arguing about threat assessments and containment protocols. But out here on the frontier, none of that mattered. Out here, there were only people in danger and people willing to help. The Vengeance accelerated toward the Deneb sector, ready to assist whoever needed them. The massive warship that had terrified Commander Zelthrus 3 weeks ago now raced to help another stranger in trouble. This was what humanity did. This was who they were. Not conquerors or invaders, but guardians who stood watch in the darkness. 2 months later, Daniel received another message, this one from UN Space Command. Commander Zelthrus's testimony has had unexpected effects. 3 council species have formally requested meetings to discuss cooperation with human patrol forces. The Valorian ambassador specifically cited your actions as proof that humans can be trusted. Command is pleased with your work. Continue current mission parameters. Daniel shared the message with his senior staff during their weekly briefing. The response was muted satisfaction. They had all known this work would take time, and they were prepared for the long haul, but it felt good to see tangible results from their efforts. Over the following year, the Vengeance and other human patrol ships responded to 73 distress calls. 42 came from council species who had accidentally contacted the Deathworld emergency channel. Each rescue was another opportunity to show that humans could be trusted. Each survivor became another voice speaking on humanity's behalf. The story spread. A Centaurian merchant whose ship was saved from pirates told everyone who would listen about the human crew who treated his injuries with care. A Meridian research team rescued from a failing station praised the efficiency and compassion of their human saviors. A Valorian child who had been terrified of the big humans drew pictures of Dr. Stevens and sent them to Earth with a letter thanking him for making the pain go away. Small stories from small encounters, but together they began to shift the narrative. The galaxy started to see humans not as monsters to fear, but as neighbors who helped when called. It helped that human patrol ships continued to operate with strict professionalism. They responded to emergencies. They defeated threats. They provided aid. And then they left without demanding payment or allegiance. 5 years after rescuing Commander Zelthrus, Captain Daniel Cross stood in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council. He wore his dress uniform and stood straight despite the attention of hundreds of representatives from dozens of species. The chair being who had questioned Zelthrus years ago now addressed Daniel directly. Captain Cross, the Galactic Council has reviewed the conduct of human patrol forces over the past 5 years. We have interviewed survivors of 73 rescue operations. We have analyzed tactical data from 41 combat engagements against pirates and raiders. The evidence is clear. Humanity has demonstrated restraint, wisdom, and compassion in your patrol activities. Therefore, the Council has voted to lift certain restrictions on human vessels. You are now authorized to operate freely in Council space for humanitarian and peacekeeping purposes. Daniel nodded respectfully. On behalf of the United Nations Space Command and the people of Earth, I accept this authorization. We will continue to patrol the frontier and respond to those in need regardless of their species or origin. That is what neighbors do for each other. In the gallery above, Commander Zelthrus watched the proceedings with Catherine beside him. The young Valorian officer who had made the mistake that started everything turned to her commander. We changed the galaxy, she whispered. 1 distress call, 1 human warship. And now look at what happened. We did not change the galaxy alone, Zelthrus corrected gently. The humans changed it by being who they are. We simply gave them the opportunity to show the Council their true nature. Sometimes that is all it takes. 1 chance to prove that the monsters we fear are actually the heroes we need.